At exactly 12:03 a.m., I woke up to the sound of silence, but not the peaceful kind. The kind where something feels wrong before your brain even catches up. My smart home system blinked itself into a coma, the air conditioner gave one last groan, and even the clock on my nightstand froze in place like it was holding its breath. My wife rolled over, half asleep, and mumbled, "Storm." But when I looked outside, the sky was clear, not a cloud in sight. No wind, no rain. Just one porch light on across the street. Karen's. There she was, standing on her front steps, robe tied tight, sipping from her oversized mug like the queen of the cul-de-sac, looking right at me. Her house was glowing like nothing had happened, while mine had gone dead as a doornail. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a blackout. This was a hit. A surgical strike on my power. And the only person smug enough and petty enough to do it? Karen Ellington, the HOA president from hell. But what Karen didn't know, and this is the part that made me smile even through the dark, was that she hadn't just cut power to my house. She'd made a mistake of federal proportions. Because I don't just live in this neighborhood. I co-own the substation that powers it. That's right, this smug suburban chess match. She just checkmated herself. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside barefoot, walking the gravel path to the utility pole at the edge of my yard. Sure enough, the line had been sliced clean. Not torn, not chewed, cut with precision. And the smell of scorched rubber told me she used heat cutters. Not something you just stumble across at a garage sale. My backup generator kicked in seconds later, humming softly under the floorboards. I crouched near the severed line, the LED beam sweeping over the wreckage. This wasn't just stupid. It was illegal. Tampering with utility infrastructure isn't like trimming your neighbor's hedge. This was federal territory. Just 12 hours earlier, Karen had marched up my driveway waving a clipboard, barking about my porch lights. Said they violated illumination harmony standards set by the HOA. She claimed the warm amber hue didn't fit the neighborhood's approved palette, which, by the way, is a real sentence she said out loud. I laughed it off, thinking it was another one of her empty threats. Turns out, this time, she brought bolt cutters instead of warnings. Karen thinks she runs the place. She walks around like she's the mayor of Pleasant Hollow. She's got HOA citations and triplicate, laminated rulebooks in her glove box, and a megaphone she uses at block parties. She once fined my neighbor for growing mint without HOA approval. Called it invasive. She yelled at a kid for drawing chalk dinosaurs on the sidewalk, said it disrupted the aesthetic flow. I mean, who does that? But cutting power? That was new. That was war. Back inside, I pulled up my security system, which thanks to the backup power was still recording. There she was, 11:58 p.m., creeping along my hedgerow like a cartoon villain. She pulls out a flashlight, then those bolt cutters, and with this wicked little grin, she slices the main line. I paused the footage and just stared at her face frozen in the beam. She looked satisfied, like she was doing a public service. Like sabotaging my home was her version of community improvement. What she didn't know was that my line wasn't just any line. It was connected through a private conduit to the substation, a little system I installed when I moved in, mostly because I never trusted the HOA to stay out of my business. And now, that little bit of paranoia had paid off. Around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Ethan, a buddy of mine who works as a technician at the substation. "Hey man, your address just flagged a manual disconnect. Everything good?" I smiled. "Oh yeah, better than good. I got the whole thing on video. Can you log it as unauthorized tampering?" He whistled low. "You want me to flag her address too?" I didn't hesitate. "Yep. And make sure the system queues up a full inspection. This one's gonna be fun." By sunrise, I was on my porch with a cup of coffee, watching Karen strut down the sidewalk in her power suit like nothing happened. She saw my lights on and froze. Her eyes narrowed. "I see your power's back. I thought you'd be down for repairs," she said with that snide little edge she always had. I took a long sip before answering. "Yeah, backup kicked in immediately. Good thing, too. The substation flagged a pretty serious incident last night. Some real sticklers over there about infrastructure tampering." Her face twitched. She didn't get it yet, not fully. "I'll be filing a complaint," she snapped. "Your setup disrupts neighborhood harmony." I nodded. "You should. And maybe check your own meter box while you're at it. Wouldn't want the city inspector to find anything non-compliant." She didn't respond, just turned sharply and stomped off. But I knew that crack in her confidence meant she was rattled. And sure enough, that night, around midnight, another motion alert buzzed on my phone. Karen, in slippers again, creeping across her lawn with a box tucked under her arm. I zoomed in. She opened her own meter box and started wiring something to homemade bypass. It looked like a bundle of spaghetti made out of wires and electrical tape. By 10:42 the next morning, 2 inspectors from the regional energy office showed up. Navy polos, clipboards, tablet in hand. Karen came out fake smiling, trying to steer them away from her meter. They weren't having it. Within minutes, they found the device and called in the Energy Compliance Division. This was no longer HOA business. This was state level now. Orange flags marked the lawn. Photos were snapped. Reports uploaded live. Karen tried everything, pleading, blaming me, even pretending she thought the device was legal. But the inspectors were like robots. Unshakable. One of them even recognized her from a past complaint. Not a good sign. Later that day, code enforcement arrived. Then the police. Officer Dan Patel, who I knew from an infrastructure security workshop, walked through my setup and laughed. She really didn't know who she was messing with, huh? Not a clue, I said, handing him the footage, logs, reports, and a printed HOA citation Karen left on my door. He reviewed everything, nodded, and said, "We're logging this as utility interference. Given your ownership of the substation, this may escalate federally." Karen must have seen him leave, because 5 minutes later, she filed a lawsuit against me. No, seriously. A full-blown, over-the-top legal complaint accusing me of sabotage, harassment, psychological warfare via power outages, the works. My lawyer Marissa just replied, "Let her dig her own grave. We'll bring the shovel." We filed a countersuit for damages, trespassing, infrastructure tampering backed by footage, data, city inspections, and the Energy Board's own findings. It wasn't just strong. It was unshakable. And when the court date came, Karen walked in with sunglasses, a silk scarf, and the energy of a woman who still believed she was the victim. Her lawyer, some guy who looked like he moonlighted selling used boats, tried painting me as a rogue tech overlord. The judge didn't buy a word. Marissa presented our case cleanly. Footage of the cut, the illegal bypass, the inspection reports, the HOA citations. At one point she read Karen's handwritten note about my threatening garden gnome. The courtroom chuckled. Even the judge. In the end, Karen's lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. She was ordered to pay my legal fees, and the judge referred her to the county prosecutor for possible criminal charges. A week later, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. Karen tried to rally support but was roasted alive instead. Turns out she'd find someone for a bird feeder, yelled at a blind cat, and banned wind chimes. People had receipts. She lost the presidency. Her nameplate was pulled off the HOA door. A for sale sign went up in her yard 2 days later. When the moving truck came, nobody waved goodbye. She packed up her rulebooks, her gavel, and her laminated fantasies and vanished. That weekend, the neighborhood held its first real block party in years. Mr. Jenkins grilled ribs. Kids ran wild. I projected a movie on the side of my garage. No citations. No threats. Just laughter, the smell of charcoal, and peace. And as I sat there, drink in hand, watching stars blink over the rooftops, I thought back to that moment when the lights first went out. That moment when everything went quiet. When I realized power wasn't just about electricity. It was about control. About who pulls the strings. And sometimes, the best way to win is to let them flip the wrong switch. So if you're watching this and you've got a Karen in your life, someone who overreaches, who punishes instead of leads, who clings to power like it owes them something, just remember, you don't have to yell. You don't have to fight dirty. You just have to be ready. Because when the lights go out, that's when people see the truth. What would you have done if Karen were your neighbor? Would you fight fire with fire? Or let her dig her own grave like I did? Drop your thoughts below. And if you've ever had a wild HOA story, I want to hear it. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a little light in their life, especially if they're dealing with their own neighborhood tyrant.